I want to make sure we have a little bit of good news here. We, not always just complaining, but we have this story from the Daily Mail. Former McDonald's CEO who invented the McNugget. Oh, good for him. Sets up new group to fight back against woke corporations and buys enough Bank of America shares to formally propose that firm scraps staff CRT training. Whoa. Ed Rensi, who served as a CEO of McDonald's in the 1990s, is partnering with conservative groups to fight back against woke corporations. He formed the Boardroom Imitative, a partnership between the Job Creators Network, the Free Enterprise Group, and Second Vote. The goal of the group is to protect shareholders and employers of publicly traded companies from woke policies and ensure corporate accountability. It comes as left-wing groups continue to buy up stocks in businesses until they raise enough clout to lobby the board to adopt leftist policies. Companies are also being forced to the left so they can receive high ESG score, which would make them more profitable. I would argue this environmental social governance thing they're doing, these companies that embrace this violate their fiduciary duty to the shareholders, and the shareholders need to start filing lawsuits on those grounds.
Well, companies that do that should be subject to scrutiny by the feds and state authorities because, in some states, and generally speaking, the law is when you're charged with investing someone's pension money, you're supposed to be trying to maximize the return. And that's your priority. Using it for other purposes to end the oil industry or advance social agendas is contrary to law. So it's not even a question of lawsuits. It's a question of, are we going to have law enforcement pursue these companies? And you've got these big companies like BlackRock, Vanguard that are pushing this. And what's interesting is they push it here, but they all own shares of companies abroad. They don't go tell Chinese companies, you need to follow our woke agenda. They tell American companies. So I think the conservatives have to understand that corporations are largely controlled by the left, and they're misusing and abusing our funds. And it's not a question of a political difference. It's a question of misconduct by the investors and, as you point out, the corporations that are misusing dollars and misusing our retirement dollars, misusing shareholder dollars and misusing our retirement dollars to advance a political agenda. That's why Florida's pulling back Disney's tax benefits, because they're misusing the trust that the public has given them through these tax benefits.
Conservatives are getting aided now in the culture war by post-liberals, people who were very much involved in culture and arts. But because the woke left has gone so insane, because they seem to have no principles, you have people probably like us who all of a sudden are just rejecting and opposing this. One of the challenges we face in all of this is there are still people who don't realize the shift and what has happened. So you still hear these old talking points about Republicans are pro-corporation. It's like, haven't you been around for the past 5 years where the conservatives were saying regulate big tech because of censorship? Yeah, times have changed. Donald Trump brought a lot of people into the Republican Party who are not traditional or conservative in that capacity. And now we need to find a way to get, people on the right who are still very much like, I don't want to regulate corporations. And we got to get people on the left to realize they're being screwed over by the corporations. Then we can make those changes.
Well, it's not regulation to enforce the laws against fraud or against the misuse of dollar. I mean, we're not asking for more. I don't want more regulation of Twitter. I just want them to be held accountable for lying to regulators and shareholders and users in Congress about the purpose and the process of their censorship. Same goes for Facebook and Google and YouTube. They're lying when they're saying they're applying neutral principles. And there's an algorithm that can't be messed with. And don't worry, it's equally applied. It's a big lie. And it should be investigated as such, the way that the oil companies were being investigated for, quote, lying about climate change, which was bunk. But we've got to enforce the law against these companies.
If Elon Musk gets a hold of Twitter, and that appears to be the news right now, that he's going to be raising some money and making a move within like the next week or so, he's going to get all those documents.
Well, he doesn't need to wait to get control. As a shareholder, he can ask for documents about the processes that I'm talking about. How is it the decision was made to throw off Trump? I was blocked for a tweet I made about hydroxychloroquine that was completely accurate. Twitter had found it to be accurate. Someone complained about it. They said it's a violation of the rules. 3-4 months later, they locked me out of my account for posting the same darn tweet. I mean, they're lying when they're saying they're doing things neutrally in a way that could survive scrutiny. If they would survive scrutiny, we should rely on Elon Musk to get the documents out. I think that's an opportunity for him to demand those documents as a shareholder.
It seems to me that if we want to go legally after these just corporations in general for abusing their shareholder trust, that it would have to be a decentralized move of lawfare. So because if one unit, like if you were the only one to go, then you're like not a target, like they did when the FBI goes into James O'Keefe's house, like because he's the head of Project Veritas, duh. So like we need everyone to go after it together, and maybe not. That's obviously hyperbole, but we need enough people pushing against these corporations for their fraud narrative, if there is such. That it's. I mean, that's what the spirit of the United States is: decentralized movement.
Yeah, we're in a great suppression. I call it the Great Suppression. I mean, where thought is being suppressed. We have the Biden administration calling in big tech companies to encourage them to censor people.
That's right.
The big tech companies are doing it. I know Judicial Watch uncovered that they were taking material down at the behest of government agencies, our material, other material. So, I mean, the idea that this is some sort of private actor out there, no, it's part of it's collusion. And it's a crisis in the sense that, we're in this revolutionary period. They want to suppress our speech. And yes, they want to jail us, as James O'Keefe has found, as those being targeted by the January 6th committee is finding. I mean, they're now taking the position that if you were on an alternative slate of electors in a disputed election, you're being investigated by the Justice Department. They want to jail their political opponents. This is a revolutionary period, and our republic is tottering. Our republic is tottering.
Absolutely agreed. I wanted to ask you something about the instance you brought up with the White House actually instructing social media companies to censor certain things. My understanding based on hearing that is it sounds like a blatant First Amendment violation, but I'm curious if there's some kind of legal loophole they're exploiting in order to get away with this?
Well, there's always legal loopholes. The question is, are you going to have individuals in positions of power to do something about it actually exercise all their prerogatives? So, for instance, President Trump was impeached for no good reason.
Yeah.
There are plenty good reasons to impeach Biden, and I'm not seeing Republican leadership talking about that in any significant way. The Justice Department is controlled by Joe Biden. The opportunities, it seems to me, in terms of enforcement against these companies is at the state level. And, Ron DeSantis is taking some leadership roles there. There are some more aggressive attorney generals at the state level as well who understand going after Twitter in Texas, demanding documents. They're in a big document fight with Twitter about their censorship policies. But it's got to be coordinated. I mean, they're attacking our freedoms and our civil rights and our civil liberties. And, these are God-given. These are God-given civil liberties. Our right to express ourselves is God-given. It's recognized by the Constitution, but the right exists separate and apart from it, and everyone's coming after it.
When you said Joe Biden is in control of the Justice Department, do you mean by appointing judges?
Constitutionally speaking, he's control of the Justice Department. It's his appointees. The Justice Department is run by the left. It's a Democratic agency. Most of the agencies are controlled by Democrats and leftists, and the Justice Department is a locus of evil when it comes to public policy in our country. Every bad thing the government does, the Justice Department defends it and or participates in it.
But it's supposed to be a neutral entity?
It's supposed to be an entity that reflects the will of the people through its appointed representative or elected representatives, such as the president. And he has the Justice Department is run by his attorney general and other senior appointees who are confirmed by the Senate. So that there are those checks in place. But the agency tends to do what it wants to do. And if there's a Democrat in office, they're free and clear. And if they're a Republican in office, they're still free and clear.
Yeah, they used to be at each other, like John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Man, they would just argue. They'd get up there and be like, I'm your vice president because I don't agree with you. And we're not going to screw this up. No, it's not a cult.
So I'd like to ask you, what's our way out of this?
Well, I always tell people, all you can do is what you can do. Are you doing what you can do? Are we using all the tools available to us under the Constitution and our system of government to enforce the rule of law and protect our rights and liberties? Are we doing what we can do at the state level? Are you active individually with your party? If these issues concern you, are you communicating with your elected officials and your friends and your colleagues? Are you running for office? Are you participating in the party mechanics You can complain about the Republican Party, but if you're not participating, some loser is probably participating who's in it for all the wrong reasons. And then once they're elected, we need men and women of ambition who understand their role in history and to protect our republic and to say we're not turning over the reins of our government to unelected bureaucracies. We're not going to play this game where we sign a check once a year for $4 trillion and then see what happens and then complain about it after the fact. It's like, the government, Congress is like the guy who says, the firefighters who set a fire and then show up after the house burns down and starts complaining. Well, this is terrible.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.